Welcome to the Party Lines, where we look at the big issues, some political and some not so political, and address them from both sides of the aisle. As Ottawa moves forward with new internet regulation, critics say the implications can be far broader than intended. Listen to this clip.
Hello, my name is Igor Sack. I am the CEO and co-founder of Windscribe, a Canadian VPN company. I am making the following statement of my own free will. I am not under duress, and my family is safe. I have made comments that oppose Bill C-22, which I regret. I have been educated. Bill C-22 is good. Canadians like myself will be protected by Bill C-22. Our government wants the power to order any company that does business in Canada to keep 1 year of metadata when ordered. This is reasonable and will help with investigations. Do not worry. The metadata will not show what you are saying online or in private conversations. It will only show who you contacted, when, for how long, where you connected from, what devices you used, where you physically were, and other information that you should not be keeping private from the government. The police said they want this bill so they can have access to encrypted communications. People who call this a backdoor are wrong. This is a sensible, lawful access capability to fight crime.
This is brilliant. I thought that's brilliant. It does go on a lot longer, so if you're interested, look it up. But
I'm not.
It was fascinating. I thought, this is absolutely hilarious from the standpoint of, this is a VPN company. It said VPN on the clip because that was what it's translated, but virtual private network. This is the CEO of a company that basically is saying, like, this is not, you can't do this. What are you talking about? And in the best way possible. I know we like to cover the news clip side of it. I thought this would be funny to bring into it anyway. So, appreciate the humor on this one. But it's a real issue, and the backdoor and the purpose behind it and the things that are being asked behind it. I would say if you haven't looked into it, take a look into it because it's going to affect every one of us.
So I read the proposed legislation, and this is my thought. You're not going to protect everybody everywhere all at once. And that's kind of what this feels like for me. First of all, everybody knows what part of the political spectrum I'm on. I'm a liberal. I believe in liberal principles. The first and most important liberal principle in the world to me is free speech. And it always will be. It's enshrined in the American Constitution.
Well, you might not like what's going to happen here.
Well, it's not passed yet. It's in committee. So it's in the American Constitution, and it's in our Charter of Rights, freedom of expression. And I think that there's this disconnect here between freedom of speech and freedom of consequences. And I think this is what they're trying to address with all this, is the consequence side. I mean, hey, if somebody is online making threats to you and your family, why should they be allowed to really do that and get away with it? Because you would say, people are threatening my family.
This is a bit different, though. And I don't disagree. And I mean, when you're talking what happened out in BC and what ChatGPT could have done as far as that, that is not what we're discussing as such. But the government is actually going to make it part that the tools that these companies, private companies have to help police police with this. So they have to help these police departments. Private companies need the tools to hand over the information to help them basically be sleuths themselves. That's an overreach. And second of all, these back doors that they're discussing, which are supposed to, for security purposes, are going to actually make things less secure. I understand what we're trying to achieve here, and the free speech we talk about is not the free speech of today. It's no one was ever talking about whatever, X or Twitter or any of that. There's public facing things and there's behind the scenes things. This is, from my perspective, where I sit on usually on this side. I get out of my bedroom, get out of my backyard, get out of my house. Do your job, police. Make sure we're safe, yes. But this is far overreaching from that.
I think, and I understand that concern, because this is not the first time this has come up. And I say to people, I get the concern. I don't want people knowing what I search. You don't want people knowing what you search. You don't want people knowing where you are. My least favorite question, where are you? Don't worry about where I am. I get that. But I also understand, because of Tumbler Ridge now, because of that very tragic event. That's okay. Tumbler Ridge, because of that event, this is the reaction to that, plus a lot of other things. So imagine there was some type of conspiracy to forcefully remove the prime minister from office and we find this big underground thing going on. That's what they want access to, is how long has this been going on, et cetera. I think the overreach that you're concerned about, which I think is a legitimate concern, by the way, I don't see it going that far. It's still in committee. It's still being debated. The bill's not passed.
When we return, debate over Toronto's underground subway system and animal symbols. You'll see what we mean after the break. Recently, a proposed overhaul of how riders navigate the TTC is sparking debate. Pairing subway exits with animal symbols rooted in Indigenous teachings is being pitched as a fix for confusion. But not everyone's on board. Take a look at Ben Mulroney.
Next time you're in the subway, I want you to take a left at the Caribou and exit through the Bear. Don't go towards the Turtle, because that's the opposite direction.
Is it?
Was that clear? Was that clear? No, of course it wasn't clear. At City Hall, TTC presentation on Indigenous wayfinding, as in finding your way, using animal icons based on the 7 grandfather teachings, received a cool response from the board. Councillor Paul, somewhat. Some people thought it was beautiful. And Councillor Paul Ainsley said some constituents felt insulted by the idea and they forced a formal vote, which passed 5-3, of course. We were having a little fun there. This isn't happening tomorrow. This was simply a vote to acknowledge the presentation. And it came from Cameron Stewart, who showed the board a slide deck on how the TTC can decolonize how people orient themselves.
Why do we need to decolonize directions?
He proposed that transit stations pair animal icons with exits, meant to work like landmarks to help riders find their way out of the system. You know what you need when you're underground? North, south, east, west. That's the only thing that you need. Decolonize how people orient themselves. Well, here, follow this logic. If the infrastructure that we have here is a product of colonization, then the wayfinding should be a product of colonization. Take it or leave it. It's all.
So I realize the clips this week are a little different as far as what we normally do.
I don't.
This one fascinated me that this was even a story. I do find Ben Mulroney fascinating in the show, so thanks for the clip. But the fact that we're even talking about this, like, we fix things that aren't broken, and we spend time. And my point of this is time that, there's staff time involved in this. There's board time involved in this. Like, why do we do these things? And that was, I think, some of the misconception too. People say, the vote passed. The vote didn't pass. The vote passed to accept a presentation. Whether you agree with it or not, you could still accept a presentation. It's like when people second a motion, they're like, oh, he's for it. No, I just might want to get it on the floor to kick the crap out of it. But the fact we're having these discussions, like, there's certain things, and I understand, decolonization of underground. Why is this even a thing?
So, mountain out of a molehill, and you stole my response. This was a vote to probably have the presentation. Let's hear what they have to say, and we'll say yes or no. I don't see this being implemented. The TTC is already over-explanatory. I use it. I know how it works. You don't really. I don't even need directional signs. I know where I'm going in the city. It's very easy to navigate. It's an easy public transit system, particularly because it could be
unless you haven't been in the underground for a while.
But
Sometimes.
If you're not going to Toronto, you're not going to Toronto. Let's just put it that way. I mean, this is what I always go back to. How does this help people? And I am somebody who has spent a large portion of my life trying to understand things. So I've tried to be as empathetic as I can with Indigenous people, as reflective as I can be. The reconciliation file, I am all for it. I am all for it. I am all for truth and reconciliation. But I am always more focused on how do we improve the lives of Indigenous people? Clean drinking water. Removing water boiling advisories forever would be something that would be lovely. Getting some reservations up to a standard of living that is recognized across the country. There's places in this country that are very, very, very upsetting to look at. That's what I would like to focus on in terms of this. Like living in Toronto and saying the biggest problem is we don't have Indigenous symbols in the subway system, I think hurts the movement. And that's just my opinion. I get why people want it. I get why it's there. It's the next forward movement for the progressive file. But in terms of truth and reconciliation, let's increase their standard of living overall across the country. And that's what I believe.
Sure. And that this has nothing, I mean, from an empathetic standpoint, I get the empathy side of it. This is making people less empathetic. When things like this come forward, it actually makes things divisive, in my opinion, not building towards it. And yes, there are areas that are unacceptable. Now, those are responsibilities. Those are things that have happened also from the leadership within some of the Indigenous organizations, as well as the government. So that's a bigger problem, and it always is the government's fault, the government's fault, It's not just the government's fault. There's a lot of, things don't happen by themselves. That's one thing. But second of all, the fact that, the fact that they even threw this out there to have a discussion on it, it fascinates me, because you're actually causing more harm than good. You think you're doing something good by bringing this in, and this is not. This is crossing things where there's no one in Toronto that would say that makes things easier. And what you're trying to do when you get around Toronto is get around easier. I don't care who you are.
Or get out of the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we return, a new report finds tens of thousands of rejected asylum seekers are still receiving taxpayer-funded health coverage, fueling a growing political debate. A parliamentary report is raising questions about Canada's immigration system, showing roughly 74,000 failed asylum claimants remain eligible for federal health benefits, often for years while appeals are removed and delayed. Watch this.
This is major breaking news. Canada has spent nearly $1 billion taxpayer dollars on healthcare for asylum seekers. But hang on. Dan, who's a fantastic Conservative member of Parliament, just said that 74,000 rejected asylum seekers are entitled to have deluxe health benefit packages. These are benefits that you don't get. They include things like vision, home care, physiotherapy. It now accounts for nearly half of all the costs that we pay for their benefits. And if you want to see the full report, it's fully available. This is public information. And Dan does a great job of reminding us that these are benefits that Canadians who have paid into the healthcare tax system their whole life don't even have access to. And this information comes when nearly 6 million Canadians can't access basic services like a family doctor. And these extended deluxe health.
So if you haven't read the report, which 99.9% of the people haven't, even take it and drop it in chat, drop it in whatever you want and get a summary about it. Because it's fascinating from the standpoint that
someone likes AI.
I do like AI, but you try to read government reports and they, there's 5 times as many pages as required. This terrified me when I read it, because they know, there's things that are broken, and we've talked immigration many times on this. I've even talked about pausing it as as an idea from the standpoint. I'm pro-immigration. I'm pro-right immigration. These are folks waiting to be removed. There's delays in it. They're getting better coverage than actually the Canadian citizens. I don't understand it. If, I talked to my one son about it. He goes, why? And I said, I honestly can't answer you. And I thought that even strikes me worse, that I can't even justify, there's no realm of possibility where I can justify this.
I just think this really opens up a broader debate. And what the partisan conservative influencer in the clips had just said, I think he needs to just make an argument for actual universal health care in Canada, because he makes a very good point. Canadians don't have access to basic services. Great. So let's change the system.
Right, but this isn't about Canadians having access.
But
this is about everyone but Canadians having access.
Well, that's also, some of the things he listed are not true, because you do get home care if your spouse or your loved one or your mother requires it. Home care, it is covered.
Right, but it's not blanketed.
Yeah, but there is the coverage available for Canadians. I don't have eye care.
I don't have dental.
Well, we're self-employed.
Sure.
So then let's make this healthcare system more universal. It sounds like we're onto something here. It sounds like we need to ditch the 1970s model and upgrade to
I think there's a lot of models that need to be ditched. Yeah. The point is there's a process to things.
Sure.
And if you're here in a legal manner, and you're here as, if you're here as a landed citizen, if you're here, depending on what it is, that's great access to services. If you're waiting to be removed from the country and you're getting better benefits than the people living in the country, that is a fundamental flaw. It doesn't matter what party you're part of. That's just wrong.
There's no partisanship with me. It's a good point. Why are people who are supposed to be removed from the country getting better benefits than Canadians? It sounds like we have to change the system. And it sounds like this is a deeper rooted problem than asylum seekers getting health care. Canadians who pay taxes, who live here, and have been paying taxes as long as we have, okay, why don't we have access to dental benefits? Why don't we have access to physiotherapy? Why don't we have access to prescription drugs? And the new legislation that the Carney government just released, by the way, they pay $4 to see a doctor, and they pay up to 30% now for physiotherapy, home care, and all that stuff. So there have been changes made, and they will be ponying up out of pocket.
It's still better what I get.
No, I know that.
I'm just fascinated.
But
like,
also,
explain that to me.
We have an asylum system where we've basically said to people, come on over here. If you're seeking asylum because you've been persecuted, religious, sexual identity or orientation, whatever, what are we supposed to do when they come here? Not take care of them? So that's why the system was set up.
These are 74,000 people who are ready to be removed.
Okay.
These aren't people that are being adjudicated to stay. This is a different conversation.
Okay.
So there's merits to what you're saying. If we're going to tell people to come over, the last thing we can do is then tell them, oh, we got nowhere to play. And we've seen what happened in Toronto. We see what 2022 and 2023 did, the federal government of Canada.
Well, those weren't all asylum seekers, though.
No, they weren't. It was everyone and their cousin, including asylum seekers. In reference to this isn't the people who are going through a process. If we've said come here and you're going to go through a process, we need to support you. We can't kick you out on your keister. So you got nowhere to live. You can't do anything when you're here and the rest of it. There is, we do need to take care of ourselves. This is not that group. These are people who are bringing on the way out. So, this isn't the same situation. And I can't justify, or I can't even fathom that we aren't taking care of ourselves and we're taking care of people that are on their way out, and we can't even have them leave.
First thing I thought of when I saw this clip is he's opening up a debate to a broader argument that our healthcare system is dated and action needs to be made more universal. And maybe the second part of the argument should be is why are they still in the country if they're supposed to be removed?
Yeah, but great point. After the break, under pressure and facing scrutiny, Tim Hortons is rethinking how it hires, and we'll take a look at what's behind the shift. Welcome back. After years of relying on foreign labor and mounting backlash over jobs and wages, Tim Hortons is pivoting pledges to hire 10,000 local workers as it tries to reset its image with Canadians. Take a look at the clip.
Tim Hortons spent the last 18 months quietly lobbying Ottawa to let them hire more foreign workers. Then this week, they did the exact opposite of everything they were fighting for. Something spooked them. So let's back up. 7 months ago, Tim's parent company, Restaurant Brands, was inside the Prime Minister's office, pitching MPs to keep the temporary foreign worker cap raised. Today, they pledged to stop lobbying entirely. So what happened? 3 things changed. 1, the math got ugly. Canadian youth unemployment hit 14.3% in April, the highest non-recession level since 1997. Secondly, the public did its own math on foreign labor. Now, Tim's loves quoting that they have less than 5% temporary foreign workers, but that's the smaller program. The International Mobility Program is bigger, and it doesn't require proof a Canadian wanted the job first. Total foreign work permit holders in Canada nearly doubled in a decade, from 530,000 to over 960,000 by 2021. A lot of that growth? Kids from India chasing a better life who got ripped off paying tuition to private colleges the federal immigration minister himself called the diploma equivalent of puppy mills. That's how a lot of them ended up behind a Tim's counter. Thirdly, the real catalyst, 2 weeks ago, Foodtastic announced 700 Dunkin' locations coming to Canada. Dunkin' left in 2018 with just a few stores in Quebec, but now they're back with the war chest. And Tim's is in the middle of a brand crisis with microwaved pizza. But here's the part everyone's missing. These shops run on boomers. If a boomer lives 10 minutes from a Dunkin' and 20 from a Tim's, they're going to go to Dunkin'. Patriotism is a hashtag. Convenience is a habit. Canada built an immigration system that filled coffee shops with kids who paid for fake degrees, suppressed wages for everyone, and is now blaming all of them for a problem nobody at Tim Hortons or in Ottawa wants to take credit for. Tim spent 2 years arguing they couldn't find Canadian workers. But a labor shortage that disappears the moment a competitor shows up never was a labor shortage. It was a wage decision.
Fascinating story. It affects all across Canada. So this is definitely a coast to coast issue. Dunkin' coming in back into Canada, I don't think anyone, wasn't really on anyone's radar. Fascinating how quickly a pivot happens. And from an overall brand perspective from Tim Hortons, they just keep coming to battling and battling and battling. It's fascinating, this golden Canadian franchise as the hits it's taken over the years.
I'm a Tim Hortons boy, so I'm not changing my mind. They can have Dunkin' Donuts. I won't go. It's an American company. So is, I guess, Tim Hortons, I guess.
It is, yeah.
Well, look, an American company bought a Canadian company, and look what happened.
Yeah.
So maybe
is Roots, though. And everyone didn't.
Oh, well, they have nice shorts. So anyways, for me, this is so, multifaceted. And I think I think right now it's a branding change. It's all a big branding change that has been influenced by not just an outcry from the public, but I think the government has probably said something. What's most disturbing about this to me is just like, unfortunately, this has produced some really, really rough language online. Really rough language online in the comment section about Tim Hortons and the workers who work there. So I see it because it pops up in my feed. And I'm actually quite disturbed at what's been said about the people who are working there. Remember, these people were brought here.
So it's fascinating. They were brought
here.
This is a Canadian. So first of all, Tim Hortons, you know, if it's 2021, you couldn't find talent. You honestly couldn't. I know. You couldn't find jobs anywhere. You couldn't find employees, anywhere. It didn't matter on the youth. But the fact it's grown to 14%, the government, I'm asking the government to be nimble. I know that's ridiculous, but the government needed to change their policy. You know, they're not taking advantage of anything that isn't there, Tim Hortons. And unfortunately, it's affecting their brand, obviously, and they're doing a pivot because Dunkin's not going to use these programs, is what they're saying. I don't drink coffee, so I kind of stand on the sidelines. I can't tell you if, Dunkin's coffee is going to be that much better than Tim Hortons, or you're going to drive. You're going to get what you like. There has been some racism brought to the forefront, and I'm not reading any comments. I'm just, seeing some of the clips and things like that as far as what the feedback is from Dunkin' and going at Tim Hortons. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but the government also has to make changes on that.
Like the previous clip and this one, they're using people to scapegoat as an actual problem. Crisis of confidence in the labor market and a crisis of confidence in the healthcare sector.
Thanks for joining us in the Party Lines this week. And a big thanks again to Anthony Feor for sitting again this week for Ashley Waters. We'll see you next week.